Napoleon wasn't short. He was just the 19th century victim of a brutal meme war. The myth claims he stood at 5 feet 2 inches, but that's British propaganda mixed with a unit conversion error. Truth? He was 5 feet 6 inches, average for his time. Why did it stick? Because picturing a tiny dictator throwing tantrums is comedy gold. Imagine him yelling at generals while standing on a dictionary. Cartoon chaos. Reality? He'd tower over half your group chat. Vikings never wore horned helmets. Not one. The horns were invented in 1876 by a German opera designer for Wagner's Ring Cycle. Real Vikings wore simple iron or leather caps, practical, not theatrical. Why did it stick? Because horned raider sounds way cooler than guy in a leather beanie. Every Halloween costume since has leaned into the lie. Marie Antoinette never said, "Let them eat cake." The quote predates her by decades and appears in Rousseau's writings. She was just a convenient scapegoat during the French Revolution. Why did it stick? Because rich people being clueless is eternally memeable. Picture her sipping champagne while peasants starve. It's too juicy to fact check. You can't see the Great Wall from space, not with the naked eye anyway. It's roughly the width of a human hair seen from 2 miles away. The myth likely started from a 1932 Ripley's cartoon. Why did it stick? Because it makes humanity look epic. Imagine spotting it from orbit. It's like finding one noodle in the Pacific. Medieval folks knew the Earth was round. Scholars since Aristotle had it figured out. The flat Earth myth was cooked up in the 1800s to dunk on the Middle Ages. Why did it stick? Because it makes us feel superior. Ha! They thought they'd fall off the edge. Meanwhile, monks were calculating planetary orbits. Ben Franklin didn't discover electricity with a kite. He likely never flew that kite in a storm. If he did, he'd be dead. He proved lightning was electrical using grounded rods, not suicidal stunts. The kite tale, sensationalized later. Why did it stick? Because mad scientists with kites beat careful experimentation in any classroom. George Washington's teeth weren't wooden. They were hippo ivory, human teeth, possibly from enslaved people, gold and lead. Wooden teeth would have rotted in days. Why did it stick? Wooden teeth sounds tragically quaint. Reality? His dentures looked like a horror prop. Salem witches weren't burned. All 20 victims were hanged or crushed. Burning was a European thing. The myth blew up thanks to Arthur Miller's The Crucible. Why did it stick? Fire equals drama. Hanging is awkward TV. Einstein wasn't bad at math. He was acing calculus by 15. The myth came from a misunderstood grading scale. 6 equals best, 1 equals worst. Why did it stick? Because failing math, then becoming a genius, is every student's fantasy. Sorry, it's just not true. Newton wasn't hit by an apple. He just saw one fall. The bonk, invented by Voltaire for a good story. Why did it stick? Because gravity equals head injury is peak sitcom logic. Paul Revere didn't yell, "The British are coming." Colonists still saw themselves as British. He'd have said, "The regulars?" Also, it was a stealth mission. The quote, from an 1860 poem. Why did it stick? Because galloping and screaming is cinematic. The Emancipation Proclamation didn't free all slaves. Only Confederate states, which ignored it. Border states kept slavery until the 13th Amendment. Why did it stick? Lincoln freed the slaves is a cleaner story than Lincoln used a wartime loophole. Vikings didn't drink from skull cups. Skal meant bowl, not skull. A 17th century mistranslation sparked the myth. Why did it stick? Chugging mead from a foe's cranium is metal as hell, even if it's just your coffee mug. Nero didn't fiddle while Rome burned. The fiddle didn't exist yet. He was miles away and actually helped refugees. The slander? From later historians who hated him. Why did it stick? Because elites ignoring disasters is timeless. The Library of Alexandria wasn't burned by Muslims or Christians. It faded over centuries due to neglect, fires, and budget cuts. Why did it stick? Because blaming one villain is easier than admitting slow decline. Columbus didn't prove Earth was round. Everyone knew. His mistake? thinking Asia was way closer. The myth? 19th century American myth-making. Why did it stick? Brave explorer versus flat earth dunces sells textbooks. Pilgrims didn't wear buckles on hats. That fashion came 200 years later. They wore plain black. Why did it stick? Buckles scream colonial chic. Without them, Thanksgiving looks like a funeral. Betsy Ross didn't sew the first American flag. Zero evidence. The story appeared 100 years later from her grandson. Why did it stick? A seamstress mom crafting a nation's symbol is heartwarming propaganda. Cowboys weren't mostly white. Up to 25% were black or Mexican. Hollywood whitewashed them. Why did it stick? John Wayne sold more tickets than historical accuracy. Dark Ages weren't dark. The term was coined by Renaissance snobs. Monks preserved knowledge. Islamic scholars advanced science. Why did it stick? Everything sucked after Rome is a lazy history take. Caesar wasn't born via C-section. His mom lived decades after. C-sections were fatal then. The myth? From a misreading of Roman law. Why did it stick? Caesar equals C-section is a fun lie, like thinking panic comes from Pan's diet. The 1621 Pilgrim Feast wasn't Thanksgiving. Indigenous peoples had harvest festivals for millennia. The Pilgrims' event was a 3-day hangout, not a holiday. Why did it stick? Turkey diplomacy unites a fractured nation. Reality? It was a Wampanoag alliance meetup. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian. She was Greek, descended from Ptolemy, Alexander's general. She was the first in her line to learn Egyptian. Why did it stick? Hollywood loves exoticizing powerful women. Sorry, Liz Taylor. Your eyeliner was Macedonian. Shakespeare didn't ghostwrite his plays. Conspiracy theories stem from classist snobbery. A Glover's son couldn't be genius. Zero evidence. Why did it stick? Secret authors are fun. Next you'll say, Drake didn't write his lyrics. Edison didn't invent the light bulb. He improved it and stole patents. Tesla and Swan did the real work. Why did it stick? Edison was a marketing wizard who even electrocuted elephants to smear rivals. Vikings didn't call themselves Vikings. Viking meant raiding, a job, not an identity. The myth, romanticized in the 1800s. Why did it stick? Go Viking! Sounds better than go freelance plundering. The Titanic band didn't play Nearer My God to Thee. Survivors reported hymns like Autumn. The myth, cemented by a 1912 sermon. Why did it stick? Dying to hymns is tragically poetic. Napoleon's hand in waistcoat pose wasn't hiding pain. It was an 18th century portrait trope symbolizing calm authority. Even Washington did it. Why did it stick? Secret stomach ache is more intriguing than fashion trend. The Iron Maiden torture device is fake. No medieval records mention it, likely cobbled together in the 1800s for a museum. Why did it stick? Spiky coffins are nightmare fuel. Washington didn't chop the cherry tree. Invented in 1806 to teach kids honesty. Why did it stick? I cannot tell a lie is moral catnip. Also, cherries equals cute. The Bronte sisters weren't just 3 geniuses in a cottage. They published under male pseudonyms because women writers were mocked. Their brother Branwell was the promising one, until he imploded. Why did it stick? Tragedy sells. Reality? They were sharp, strategic, and fed up with sexism. Cowboys weren't lawless. Towns like Dodge City banned guns in 1878. Violence was rarer than today's bar fights. Why did it stick? Sheriff versus outlaw beats permit applications at City Hall. Chopin wasn't the sad pianist. He partied hard in Paris, loved puns, and had a fiery temper. The myth? Romanticized after his death. Why did it stick? Brooding artists sell concert tickets. Reality? He'd have roasted you on Twitter. Go ahead, admit it in the comments. Which of these lies have you passionately defended at a party, only to realize you were gloriously, hilariously wrong? Your shame fuels our content. And if your brain just got upgraded, smash like and subscribe, because history's weirdest truths are just getting started.